Now, Greg is our contract quote, the person that's going to quote calibration, for lack of a better word. He's in sales. He's taking Sandler training. Lanie, of course, is our vice president of Morehouse. And we're just going to have a discussion based on customers, a little bit of follow-up from when we had Ryan Kelly on the last episode. We're going to talk about communication and the importance of communication, as well as terminology and making sure that what you need, Greg is able to provide a quotation for, because it's not always apples to apples conversation. Many customers will say, hey, please calibrate, and Greg does not know what that means.
Oh, great. I'm excited about this one because it's Greg, because we're at an awesome point here where we have pulled someone from the Cal Lab to be our first point of contact for so many customers and finding out what their calibration needs are. So Greg, take it away. How's it going?
Good. The official title that we came up for this role was Recal Specialist. So I take new requests in and I look back in the history of what we have, dating back some years, and piece together different calibration processes, serial numbers, customers. That's been one of the challenges that I haven't expected, trying to figure out who the equipment belongs to and where it should be going, and all of those details. So yeah, it's all engrossing, and I lay the groundwork for the Cal Lab so that they know what it is, the work that they're expected to do. Try to get the details down from the customer as far as what they require in their industry and how they want their data presented after their instruments have been calibrated. So it's been a lot of fun. It's been challenging. It's been empowering in here at Morehouse and in my personal life as well outside of here. So it's been a great growth opportunity for me. So thank you.
So talk about the lab. This is a more fun topic. We often say this is unfiltered. So one of the major complaints is if when you establish a system of synchronous flow, which means from the time Greg talks to somebody, assuming it's he verifies everything, makes sure everything is correct, so the technician can just virtually just put something in a machine, simplifying it to the nth degree, apply forces, and send it back out, and everybody's happy. Now, that's the ideal situation that everything's documented. So what is the challenge to get that? And let it off with the please calibrate, because some people just say, I don't know, just someone somewhere up above said send it to you guys, and hopefully you know what you're doing, and this is what what I want.
Certainly. Well, every step of the process has its own challenge. So whether it's a vague request coming in from somebody who might be new in their position, or maybe they don't have anything to do with calibration and they're just a buyer, or maybe you're dealing with somebody who doesn't make the decisions, just somebody who was given a task.
Mm-hmm.
The challenge of receiving the correct equipment, the challenge of receiving the equipment in a damaged state, unbeknownst to the customer through shipping and handling. All sorts of different challenges that we face, little mini games that we, tackle and accommodate and ultimately solve to make sure that the documentation and the chain of custody throughout the entire process has been, consistent and it all flows. So by the time it gets to the calibration lab, it's already been through 3 or 4 different hands on our end. Who knows how many different people on the customer's end, if it's even a third-party calibration, where we're calibrating it for a different company for somebody else. So yeah, there's all sorts of different little barriers that you have to overcome before it gets to the calibration lab. and then the calibration itself.
So what you were saying there is, let me get this
Yeah.
straight because I'm not understanding, is you're saying that after a customer talks to you, it is not 100% guaranteed that everything will be perfect in line. This is news to me. So, and I think it's news to everyone listening.
It's the chain of custody and all those details are so important for traceability, and that's really the
Right.
name of the
That's a good
game
point.
for us is traceability. So it's
Right. So we do everything we can on our end to make sure that from the minute it, arrives in shipping and receiving, that
Yep.
we're following procedure, best practices, established clear documentation of, what was received, and that includes pictures and a shipping and receiving report that it gets touched on again as it's leaving, because you mentioned the state of equipment as it's received, and sometimes it's a missing cable. Like whoever on the customer's end may have um, forgotten something. Um,
Yep.
so it is a lot, and I it's really making me curious though, like wanting to visit customers though, because you're mentioning like 3 or 4 hands here, and I'm wondering how many hands it goes through on the customer end. Because we've heard the frustrated customers on the phone, I
Oh,
think,
yeah.
when something does go wrong, where it is that decision maker that you get to, when we have to have a conversation about, well, we're not liking these numbers, and we end up hearing a story about something that happened on their end, and figuring out what we can do to help them out.
Or we hear a question and we give
Mm.
possible solutions, and then we do not hear from them again. Or you follow up and they say, oh, yeah, it was the machine, not this. We see a lot of things improperly packed coming in. Like there are people that use that blow foam, heavy load cell, and foam that can easily be crushed. Guess what wins at the end of the day? That unfortunately, this is where people have to step up, and it takes a lot of our time to say, hey, your load cell came in, it's damaged. So, Greg, some of those challenges, I know I've talked to people and they've said stuff like, what 400-pound gorilla packed this thing? It's like, I'm like, what? Oh, yeah, we don't have one of those here, sir. So, what are some of the challenges that, or some of the interesting things that you've seen that become, they're all opportunities for improvement. Though, what are some of those that are commonalities that you're noticing so far?
Well, the if you expect the same day in calibration as the day before, you're
No.
every day is unique. Every customer's equipment set is unique. And so that's part of the fun of it, is trying to understand what it is you're working with, having, a pretty broad scope of knowledge and equipment, so that you can identify little things like, oh, output. Having a stated output on a sales order just is one less thing that the lab has to spend time focusing on. And so it's those little things that that I try to accommodate and have some flexibility, and having the conversations with customers about things like tolerance and accuracy, and different calibration methods, because oftentimes we get these intertwined requests of calibration buzzwords and different specifications that don't, in the real world, or in the calibration world at least, they're not cohesive. They're more exclusive. So trying to teach customers, or at least the people who are buying and sending the calibrations in, trying to get through to somebody who can get a clear answer, to avoid any downtime. That's our biggest goal, is to be flexible. My biggest goal, at least, be flexible in the beginning, try to come to a conclusion, and then when it gets here, have it come in and out as clean and smooth as possible. Because the more times you have to go back and touch something, it's just wasted time and effort. And we're trying to stick to a pretty tight turnaround time, our 7 to 10 day, which for the most part has been true. It's always redeeming when a customer reaches out and says, "Hey, just looking for an update," and you say, "Oh, it's been calibrated, the certs are reviewed, and it's going through billing and shipping now, and it'll be on its way back to you," or "It's expected there today, you'll see it later today." It's always a good feeling when you can say something like that rather than "Thank you for your patience and dealing with this long, drug out, slow, painful process," which those orders happen as well. But we try to minimize those experiences, not only for our customers, but also for ourselves.
Right. I think what you were touching on there a bit ago was how we try to strike a balance. Because you mentioned, the people placing the order, whether that's decision maker, whether that's a Caltech, whether that's a lab manager. So trying to solve their problems and minimize their headaches, have the answers for them, but then also get the information needed because they're not always clear on what they need. So I think that that's a particular balancing act that's challenging for a sales role like yours. I think you, in your position, fortunately, we have the customer's history
Yep.
typically,
Mhm.
and we rely on that, and it really helps us out frequently.
That's a huge tool that I
Mhm.
use for just about every calibration that I quote.
Right.
Going back, looking at it, trying to figure out, expectations and
Mhm.
Yep.
what it is that they're trying to get, because needs change, and
Yep.
Right. Mhm.
industry requirements change and progress, or maybe the equipment has been, uh, you know, put into a different role or is being utilized differently on their end. So yeah, we try to have that flexibility and uh, having these discussions only makes it easier when dealing with the customer in trying to figure out what it is that they need, so that we're providing for them the certifications for their equipment that are required without doing any sort of redundant work or tying up machines that are constantly running in the cal lab.
Yeah. I mean, we do
So
have a business. So on that line of things,
yeah,
just a
yeah, exactly.
Right.
kind of a fun point is one of the hard things from being in the cal lab and calibrating something is you want to call something junk or garbage or do this, or you say, if we want to reframe that, we would say it's a challenging piece of equipment. And sometimes you have the customer that said, "Hey, last time we did something with a tolerance of 0.1% of full scale." They get audited, and all of a sudden now they want it to be 0.05% of full scale. And the reason you're several reasons you're promoted to this role, but being in the lab, a lot of times you learn the equipment and you know what's going to work ahead of time, right? You know that, my gosh, that 0.1% was a challenge for us to get, and now they want twice as good. And we have great equipment. We have standards that are good to 0.02% of applied. So we, talk about that all day long and say, all right, they want 0.05, 0.02. That's like 25 times better than if we just look at ratios, which we'll talk about in a minute. But how do you tell them that their equipment is too much of a challenge and that they should buy something else if they want to achieve that? Because a lot of people want to buy a Yugo and have it perform as a Ferrari. That's not uncommon, right? And you
Yeah.
deal with it all the time. So how do you tell them? I mean, I'm one that got called out because I had said X manufacturer, what do you expect? It's this manufacturer, and somebody just raked me over the coals and said you should never talk badly about a manufacturer. I'm like, well, when you invite that manufacturer to come in, spend weekends with them, and do whatever it takes to make them better, and they decline, you feel pretty burnt by that manufacturer. I'm like, who would do that? So the way I've always retooled it is said this, okay, it's this type of load cell in general, the high stress single column cells that are very cheap are more difficult or more of a challenge to calibrate than a Morehouse multi-column load cell that Mark designed. So anyway, how do you convey these hard conversations when somebody wants something that you just know it's probably not possible?
Yeah. Well, trying to understand the customer's expectations, um, looking at different factors um, on the equipment itself with the past calibrations, generally by looking at the previous worksheets and certs, we can, and having the history, year over year or biannual, or every 2 years or 3 years, however often they get their instruments recalibrated, looking at those and just introducing the idea, hey, if this doesn't meet the specification, how would you like us to proceed? Would you like to expand your tolerance? Would you like, notification, and then open up a conversation at that point about what other options are available to you, whether it's trying to change the resolution of the instrument or get a different indicator that maybe is known to be more stable, or maybe even just a different calibration range and having a complementary range to their calibration, to the capacity, a high and a low. There's all sorts of different things that we can do to accommodate what their needs are and try to utilize the accuracy of the deadweight primary standards that we have here to benefit the customer and make their equipment as useful to them as possible with the data set that we attain in the Cal Lab.
Right. And it's not, you can't always do it. I mean, if you look at data, the customer's at 01 and every year we're adjusting it and they want to go to 05, it's buy better equipment or shorten your interval. When you shorten the interval, it's like you're going to pay us. We like that. You're going to pay us a lot more money, and you're going to have it calibrated every 3 months. Well, then you're going to have 7 to 8 downtime. If customers want to do that, they can do that. But it's been a big educational push on my end, at least for several years. And now you're part of this this educational push too, to try to help customers save money. By saving money, we're talking about upgrading these pieces of equipment that you're talking about. If it is something as simple as another range or just a better indicator or resolution, or maybe they need a grounding strap, they have a meter that for whatever reason is picking up interference and we can just ground it down and do a alligator clip. From the easiest things, a rewire cable, there are some things that sometimes work, but not in every case.
Occasionally it feels like magic, it's like
it's just
you're like looking, you're in the Cal Lab and you're like, I need this thing to work with me here. What are we going to do? And that's one of the other, challenges is you get this equipment from the field, and then we have our nice lab and so it's not being utilized in how the customer utilizes it. And so I always try to, when I send a quote, ensure that by looking at the notes, hey, it looks like we used your top block to get this calibration done, or make sure that you include the cables and the indicator, or that all of that kind of stuff to try to replicate as close to possible how the customer is using it, to give honest reportage. I mean, that's really the biggest thing, and sometimes that honesty is hard because customers have an expectation and it just doesn't meet. And, there's only so much that we can do until it's time to say, all right, let's look outside and try to bring something into this equation that's going to do what everyone is expecting it to do.
We want to fix it. Look, we want to help
Yeah.
them. When you send something, a customer sends something, and the output is shifted by 0.4%, and you look at the history, and you see, go talk to somebody in the lab, and you say, well, yeah, we have notes that they're constantly shifting their cable from a 4-wire system from 50 feet to 12 feet, and you have this discussion with them, and they keep doing it. There is some frustration there as far as the role and how much energy do we use to try to educate everyone, because you have limited amount of time in your day to do everything you need to do, and it's trying to make the most impactful, being the most impactful for general industry. In saying that, is what I mean is that if you told a customer 10 times it's the cable and you need to get something, like when do you just say, look, it's like your data is bad because you're doing this. Stop doing it. And how do you better you're in Sandler now, Sandler sales.
Mhm.
Everybody has that because it's an easy process. You have bonding and rapport, upfront contracts. This is how it's going to go. Though that's part of that upfront contract, the expectation that the customer is going to put a little bit of time and energy to educate themselves to make them or their company able to replicate the calibrations that we give them. And that includes telling you, this is how I'm using it. I'm using it with these top blocks. Sometimes I alternate 12 and 50-foot cables. And then the discussion is, you probably need a meter that has 6-line sense to eliminate the resistance impacts of those longer cables. You should switch it out. I don't want to spend the money. So this is on the customer side. This is the discussion, Greg, right? These
Yeah.
are the pieces that are very difficult. And every time you win, guess what? You know what happens. The customer comes back and you're like a freaking hero, right? Greg H is the hero when the win happens. Greg H is the enemy of the people when the data shifts and the results don't match.
Well, it's always fun to dig into these cases, because yeah, it's these you get some equipment sets that are 30 and 40 years old that
Yep.
just work well, and
We can drop some
you know
names like the
we
OVLH
yeah
cells
y-
and systems.
you just you want at the end of the day, we we love doing what we do in calibration, so we want the customer to be satisfied, and it's how do I relate this? I love cooking, and so it's like you want to use fresh ingredients, right? Like
Hmm?
if you're using rotten ingredients to make a meal, you're not going to get a good quality meal unless that's, a flavor profile you're looking for. In which case that's fine, but being able to identify where the problems may lie, and then communicate it to the customer. And
Yeah.
it's good for me because I have a couple of years of experience in the calibration lab
Hmm?
without any of the heavy formal uh, brainiac type stuff. So I try to simplify it
Yeah.
to make it easy to present to customers. Hey, this is what we're dealing with, and I try to be direct, in dealing with the Sandler, learning how to be direct and just get right to the point, but doing so in a way that's easier to digest. It's not about the customer. It's just an electrical component. It's something that we can
Hmm?
figure out if we work towards together. And I love coming up with solutions. It To me, coming together and getting onto the same page with somebody and having a solution that works for the customer, and also something that I know that the calibration lab will look at and say, huh, okay, easy enough, fair enough, and be able to do the work any of the uh, without any of the translation, heavy translations and things that, it's
It's not always complicated.
It's not.
No.
It doesn't
It's not
have
always
to. It
complicated.
doesn't
It doesn't
have to be
have to be.
complicated. Exactly.
Right. And earlier you touched on how every day is different in the lab, and I've seen that. Like one of my favorite things is when I go in the lab and I see one of you guys just having the best day, where every piece of equipment that gets picked up,
Oh, the
it's
smile,
just working.
ear to
Oh.
ear.
Right. Yes. So, like, as much as this conversation is focusing on like how do we solve problems and how do we deal with headaches and how do we sort of troubleshoot, you've seen those days, and I mean Henry mentioned some of that older equipment that's just legendarily good, just fabulous
yeah.
stuff,
Yeah.
right? So it's certainly not all ugly. It's sort of like when you've
No.
seen that good stuff,
No.
you know how things can be better, and to like take that positivity and that perspective on how things could and should be, I think is fabulous.
Yeah. I mean, 80% of the work that we do in the lab, I would say, is seamless and just, everything
80-20
works.
rule
And
all the time.
80 is a
Yeah.
good number. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
20% are
Pretty
going to give you
solid.
the biggest problems and to nip away at it.
yeah.
And the reason we're talking about it is because we're hoping that people listen and they say, oh, let me look at my data. Every year I want
Mhm.
0.1%, and every year Morehouse is adjusting it. Maybe I need to shorten the
Yeah.
calibration, or maybe I need to have a discussion about different equipment because I want to stretch my cal out 18 months to 2 years, and then I don't have to pay as much for that. So you can have a sunk cost of equipment. Lanie's also accountant
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
You can have the sunk costs of the equipment, maybe even depreciate your equipment over several years, and then if you buy the right stuff, you can probably extend your calibration interval depending on your risk tolerance and levels. So this is really a positive conversation if you can get through to people to say, hey, look, you can spend a little more up front and save a lot over the next 10 years. I know the almighty shareholders, and this is where my bias comes in, I've seen it, oh, we won't spend anything unless it's a 2-year return. Well, if you say you can recoup everything in 2.5 years and you're paying this huge bill, that's pretty impressive, right? I think to have at least have that knowledge to save your company money, and not mention your measurements. I mean, if we're adjusting something every year, and the guys and the techs in the lab know everything, and that's every time something comes in, there's a bias, right? You know it, Greg. You had it every year, you adjust it. This thing's in. I've adjusted it. I've been here 5 years, and every year it comes in, I struggle with it, and I struggle. The challenge is for me to just get it in enough, program it, reprogram it, because sometimes the meter kicks the bias or something. You're like, well, that's not the weight I applied. All of that stuff and some of that equipment adds to a little bit of frustration where there is equipment that you're talking about that 80% of the time it comes in, someone just picks it up, puts it in a machine. Well, that's not as challenging, of course, as trying to troubleshoot and deal with it. And then there's also manufacturers that lock you out and trying to find adjustment procedures and all that. So there's a lot when you're selecting equipment. There's a lot that goes into it besides some salesperson just trying to sell you something. What actually goes into it is what is the reliability going to be of this equipment? Am I going to maintain the tolerance that I'm expecting? And how did the manufacturers test tolerance? I always say to people, you could call Greg up and ask for recommendations. You could call any of our techs up. If you're looking for equipment, you can call other people too. Any techs in almost any lab should be honest about, they're going to steer you towards the equipment that's probably in tolerance the majority of the time and holds what they expect it to hold. And they're going to avoid the stuff that, oh my gosh, I have to look at this with 1 foot off the ground, cross-eyed, and I have to take a hammer and bang it. I mean, no, we don't bang any. Well, we do bang some things with hammers, but typically we get customers' approval for that, right?
Yeah, always.
Or we dry out a load cell with that was some of the fun stuff on the repair side of things that you quote. Right. Hey, your load cell came in. Remember Ryan did that one, and he's like, have you ever seen this? As I'm applying force, water's just dripping out of the load cell. And the next thing I get a Teams message from Joachim that he's got it suspended in the air on a crane, and he's got a burner underneath it trying to evaporate off the water. Fortunately, we fixed it. But that's another call that says, hey, we don't know if we can fix it or not. It's weeping water. and then we could
Yeah.
try.
It's one of
And
those times where
yeah,
it's so painful that we can't share the customer name because they're
yeah.
definitely doing things that are out there.
Oh, they're fast. I
Yeah.
mean,
One of the
some
biggest
customers go
things,
fast.
Yeah.
one of the biggest things that came to mind is, it's easy to say, and this has always been my mindset. It's easy to say, oh, you just put it in the machine and go. But one thing that I can't stress enough is most of the work that's done here, it takes the entire team to do the work.
Yep.
So, you say, oh, well, the the Caltech just sets it in the machine and goes. Yeah, at that particular moment, that is the task. Put it in the machine and run it. Exercise it and run it and gather the data. But it takes the engineers, takes the machine shop, it takes IT,
Hmm.
all of these
Hmm.
pieces of the puzzle that come together in that moment. And that's, I've never worked for an organization like this, where everybody is so willing to help and the talent is so deep. And so I see myself as just a point of contact because oftentimes I go here or there for the answer. And then I am simply just relaying the answer back to the customer or the Cal Lab, whoever it is that I'm dealing with at that moment. Um, and so it's fun because it offers a ton of learning opportunities. It kind of makes me aware of different aspects that I wasn't previously, keen on. And so that's one of the biggest things is the team that it takes. It's not just set it and forget it. There was a lot of forethought that went into it, the history and the testing and the continual testing and all of
Reviews.
the steps that we take to make sure that when it comes time to calibrate, that we can rely on those results because of all the groundwork that's holding up that moment uh, in the
That's a
cat
great
lab.
point. Lots of
Yeah.
training. I mean, you have
Yeah,
alignment is critical, adapters are critical. Once you get through that and you know it, the customer expectation on how they are using it is critical. All of these pieces, when you align them all, it makes it a lot easier process. And it can the when we started where synchronous flow can happen, where each
yeah,
piece from the customer to you is 100% accurate. What you've recorded is 100% accurate that goes to the lab. What the lab does then is 95% because we're working on 95% confidence level, so it drops off a little bit there. So then what the customer does is they or the lab does, they're able then to perform that calibration with a high confidence level. Typically, we'd say 95% because of all the stuff that goes in it. That's not this discussion here, but I am going to switch something because I wanted to pull things up, and then you have to ship it. And if everybody does their job and shipping doesn't do their job, that sucks. If
hmm,
everybody does their job and then UPS, FedEx, DHL, whatever you're using doesn't do their job, then that sucks because it doesn't get complete to the customer.
yeah,
And at the end of the day, that's our job is really like that customer satisfaction. On our core values, we have raised the standard and we have promote a positive customer experience. Those are
yeah,
the two highest ones of it. And
yeah,
that's what we want to do. Some things are out of our control, but we can mitigate the risk. We can double box things. We can suggest putting things in Pelican or Storm cases or whatever case you have with custom cut foam to hopefully mitigate the risk of damage because we know that the majority of equipment that are put in those cases show up and get to the location without damage. So there are things that we can do. Not everybody wants to do them. Some people just throw things in boxes. There's stories that I have, Greg, from other uh, when we talk about shipping and everything else with gauge blocks that people in their company have just taken a whole gauge block set and dumped them out of their container and threw them in a box. And they had 30 years of history.
Oof.
Never use those gauge blocks again. So what I wanted to show you here, this is a first for what we're doing, maybe we'll do it more, is I am going to a Word document here for those that
Oh.
are on YouTube. and I believe you can see this, but when we were talking about just general communication, there are so many things that go into general communication. Someone might say something like, I want test accuracy ratio. That's a term I hate just because it's defined. And there's two definitions right here. I'm just showing the screen. One is the accuracy of the unit under test divided by the accuracy of the reference standard. The second one came from a mill standard back in like 1990. It's section 5.2, and I don't have the exact standard up, but that came as accuracy of the unit under test divided by the collective measurement uncertainty. It's the same term, two very distinct definitions. And then we moved to TUR that people, NCSLI, the handbook.1 confused TAR with TUR and just said it could be interchanged. So then people confused those. And we see these on purchase. The only reason I pulled these up is because you start seeing some of this stuff on purchase orders. And when you see this on a purchase order, we have no idea what it means if there's several definitions. We would just rather somebody write it out. Here, I want my load cell to be this good with a probability of false except of this. That gives us a very distinct objective, and we can follow a decision rule. When you say terms like TAR or a 4-to-1 TUR, you have to really pay attention to what definition is being used. Here's another one. It's Measurement Capability Index, CM, which is just defined the tolerance divided by the expanded uncertainty of the measurement, usually calculated at 95% confidence. So it's just more things to talk about, and I'm going to stop sharing for those that watch on YouTube. But those are formulas and that are out there that Greg has to try to decipher, and it's not always easy.
This is probably one of my favorite questions when we interview people here, because I love that Greg referenced the team. My Grinch heart grew a little bit when he was talking about we have such a knowledgeable, helpful team here, because I think we've worked really hard to build that. It's one of my favorite things about Morehouse for sure is the people. But key to our core processes, Henry, I'm sure you remember when we all met previously, and it's investigate, innovate, educate, problem solve, adapt, and deliver. And it comes up over and over again in everything that we do, is that problem solving, investigating, and having that flexibility that Greg's referenced a few times too.
And you forget to do it too. You jump. Everybody has their own bias. Greg is one that's fantastic because I think he steps back from it and looks at things holistically. Though there are people in the organization that automatically jump. I can be one of them to blame the load cell, to blame something else based on the experiences that were created over time, to blame the salesperson, to say immediately the salesperson didn't do what they needed to do and I do not have the complete information. We're all human and that does happen. But Greg, you want to comment on any of that fun stuff?
Yeah, there's just so many variables to it. I always try to take the approach of is it me? Am I the problem first?
I'll change.
And then
I love it.
And then address it from there. So yeah, I always and that's the fun thing about it, is that there is a process and we try to follow that process and it's repeatable. And, by having that process, it allows you to see where things are going well, see where things aren't going so well, and then make adjustments, whether that be how you're communicating with the customer or clearly defining, expectations, things like that, and just being honest, and just having the honesty.
That's great. Yeah, I love when you said, "Is it me?" Because I do the same things. That made me laugh a little bit. But I know you well enough to like you. It's what can I do to fix this? I think is like our best people all go there. What can I do to fix this? What can I learn from this?
Definitely
all of those pieces that's what I think it's kind of the glue of our organization.
And that's my background. I come from a repair
background. Touch on that, because that's one of my favorite things about you too.
Before you do that, here Greg, I'm the Eric. For those watching, we have a team member that we we have fun with one of the sales people, so this was appropriate to say,
Everyone's favorite guy to rag on, Eric Landis.
everybody's favorite guy
Great resource.
Yeah,
You know,
he is. He is.
just-
He is
He is.
absolutely
He's
fantastic. Besides his
Mr.
love for the
Helpful.
Cowboys, we have to forgive him for some things. Not everyone can be perfect, and that is his major flaw. I apologize to the Cowboys fans. I really don't. I'm just saying that so you still like us.
Every boy can dream. You know, Eric, he's in a forest
we
now.
go.
He might have a chicken or something in his future. But yeah, having a
repair
background in mechanics and repair, I like when things work. You know, I spend a lot of my time and energy taking things that maybe have fallen into disrepair and bringing them up to my liking and making them usable again. So yeah, in seeing you know, these little issues, most of them are pretty easy to accommodate. It's, you know, very rarely is it something that's extraordinary that requires, you know, some sort of tremendous, you know, collaboration and effort. And those do come up. And you know, they're just as fun because it's, you know, it's a learning experience. It's a time to come together and learn about the different processes and departments. Because now I fall, you know, I'm in the sales department, but I fall in between all of the departments that we have here. And so it's definitely a fulfilling role that I have now. And it's much easier to fix some of these things on the front end with the knowledge of, you know, how they're going to continue through the Morehouse chain of custody. So yeah, I'm happy with how it's going. The Cal Lab has been, you know, busy. There's been plenty of work there. I've been getting great feedback from customers, mostly on the product that we offer, and even the information. You know, I have had customers say how much they love what it is that you do, Henry, in putting out these talks and the papers and the presentations, and so
you
it's
had one person watch that? That's amazing. So, I mean, our podcast is going to go up by like 6 listeners because you're going to have your parents and Lanie's parents. I mean,
yeah.
We've grown that audience. I have some rapid fire.
You know, they're
Oh, and your in-laws. That's 8. Holy crap. We're going to have a
Greg
oh,
and I
man,
could
don't
almost
know.
compete, I think, for family skies because Greg's originally from Jersey, so his
Oh,
extended family is very. I think he's got a lot of attachment there.
broad and
Yeah.
We just have your
vast.
families do it.
So between my
listenership
crazy
will jump.
hippie family and 6 siblings and all their attachments, and yeah, so this will go.
So I have some rapid fire questions for
Okay.
you, Greg.
Sure.
Some are good, some might be uncomfortable. So, what is the greatest feeling in this role?
The greatest feeling in this role is, you know, hearing the Cal Lab say, "Hey, great sales order. It had all the information I needed," because that's what I want, is for the Cal Lab to feel like they have everything that they need right at their hands when they start the calibration. So having the ability to dig it up and put it right there and serve it up fresh for them.
Fresh.
Is,
That's awesome.
He's cooking again.
He's cooking again.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to your Caltech role. What is the most difficult calibration?
Multi-axis load cells.
Multi-axis load cells.
Multi-axis load cells, torque, force, different fixturing, you know, alignment. Those had amplifiers. Those had all sorts of tricks and lots of things to consider.
I get it.
So
I get it,
Yeah.
and they're nerve wracking because if you do one thing wrong, you're redoing. Sometimes we're not perfect. I'm going to tell people things that they should
Yeah.
never know. Sometimes we're not perfect as technicians, and then you start a cow and you realize, oh, I forgot to hook this up, or I forgot to do this. And if you're doing a multi-axis cell and it happens like 4 of the 6 axes is in, it is not the greatest feeling that you have to go back and now you're starting back over. If you do
Yeah.
it on a simple force gauge, it's like, oh, okay, I've wasted 20 minutes. On the multi-axis cell, you might be talking half a day or even a full day at
Yeah.
that time. Okay, favorite band. Let's
Ooh.
allow people to know you a little bit.
Favorite band.
I feel like I should know this and I don't, so I'm excited. I can't wait to hear this one.
Favorite band. I'll say ooh, man, that's really tough.
Is it Backstreet Boys?
Yeah.
Well, I was born in 88, so I made my wife cry laughing once singing the Backstreet Boys.
Nice.
But I prefer singer-songwriters, and I would say Jackson Brown.
Jackson, good one.
Nice.
That leads
70s,
me to
60s, 70s California.
I love that.
Yeah, so you probably like Cat Stevens then, or the artist
Yeah, Cat
formerly known
Stevens,
as,
Jim Croce, Ray
Oh,
LaMontagne.
Yep.
There's just that's easy listening.
Who would win in a fight, Backstreet Boys or 98 Degrees, if they just had a death match?
Oof. Well, I would say 98 Degrees wore more hair gel, so it might give them better impact protection.
It might. They might poke eyes out.
And
or something.
also,
I never factored in the hair gel.
they're pretty big guys. I would give it to 98 Degrees.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
hot.
We'll see. We'll see what backlash you get from that, and make sure you're not canceled. Let us know for the people that are going to deal with you on a regular. What's something that's strange about you that maybe in a public forum?
Well, I let my friend tattoo this mustache on my finger. 5:00 in the morning on February 3rd, 2007, and that was the day that'll live in infamy.
That's awesome. I didn't even know you had the
2007.
mustache.
I love that the date and everything that it's
Oh, that's so funny. That's the day that was forever a great day and lives with you, and now a regretful day that lives with you.
Here we are 20 years later.
I remember the day we interviewed you, Greg, and I've been a Greg fan since that day. It was an immediate like. I think part of it was, it's funny Henry asked the music question because one of my favorite things about you is when I mentioned something about Krungben, you mentioned, oh, they toured with Leon Bridges, and you're a cool guy. You know a lot of things, but the day I saw that mustache on your finger, I think I did have a good laugh. I had forgotten those things were ever part of our cultural zeitgeist.
I did not know. I
Yeah.
forgot, or I did not know that. That's
Yeah.
so funny because we come into the lab all the time. We talk and never. Yeah, you hide that. You hide your stash.
It's an alter
So-
ego.
It comes out.
It exists.
If you
When
need
you
to look
talk
more
to the lab,
serious
For the
or
fine-
I
for the
didn't make a
finer
mistake.
things.
I didn't make a mistake. That was.
The torque calibration on this is
You need to watch the Andy Kaufman, Tony Clifton, because he would come out as the manager, Tony Clifton, the alter persona. So you just put the finger up. I don't know what you're talking about. So, well, yeah, thank you. Hopefully, the listeners, those out there, the 6 of us that we talked, the 6 of you that we talked about. No, hopefully that this gives some insight into some of the people and what we're all about. And we're just about. Greg can add to it. We're about promoting that positive customer experience and trying to find solutions. What else?
Yeah.
You want to add anybody want to add anything to that?
My goals are accessibility, trustworthiness. It just I have the core values here, just adhering to those core values that we've established at this company. And I think that most of them are they're deeply rooted. I don't think that you, as a customer, there's certain things that are challenging, whether it's a technical requirement, but I think that people can call Morehouse knowing that we have their best interest in mind. We have, the highest level of integrity, that,
Absolutely, yeah.
it's not something that we have to fake or, convince people of. I think that our process and our results speak for themselves. And, we show up to do the right thing, and we show up to do right by the customer. And that's why we're here, and we keep showing up for it. And it's a worthwhile endeavor.
So it's a good way to spend your day to make an impact for people. And Greg, whenever you're in video interviews with people now, you're gonna have to do I must ask you a question. You gotta add that to it. So, but yeah, our goal is provide that experience. I mean, you have companies doing all types of different things, and I think our customers know that we're willing to work with them. And people like Greg, Lanie, myself, that's our number one goal is basically to make sure that you get what you need. Hopefully you listen to us. I mean, we'll bring that piece back because I think we know a thing or two. And if you implement those things or twos that Greg or somebody else, you will save money over time. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all. Thank you, Greg and Lanie.
Thank you.